Welcome to another Telltale Books video. I'm Greg,
And I'm Emily.
and we're continuing our Edgar Allan Poe exploration tonight with this video and a story called The Man in the Crowd. The Man, no,
Man of
The
the
Man
Crowd.
of the Crowd.
There you go. You're probably thinking of the movie A Face in
No,
the Crowd.
I just want to say in the crowd because you don't have a man of the crowd, you have a man in the crowd.
Yeah.
Generally, when you're talking just about
Yeah.
whatever, you wouldn't
The
be saying
syntax
it
is a
that
little
way.
weird.
Um,
The grammar
the
is strange.
the title is important to the story, so it's important to get the title correct. The Man of the Crowd, number 78 in my Edgar Allan Poe bibliography. It was published in December of 1840 in a magazine called Graham's Magazine.
Mm.
Never heard of it
Yeah,
before.
neither have
Um, and the only other thing I can say about it is I have it in this huge Sun Tup Poetry and Tales of Edgar
I. With
Allan
its
Poe.
beautiful cover.
Mhm.
Love
Could
it.
have done more with that. That spine is almost as big as a normal
No, it's
book
so
cover.
big. You could literally put a whole
Yeah, they could have put
could have
some
wrapped
artwork
that
on there.
could have wrapped that sucker.
Um, very nice
Excuse me.
book, which was a limited edition, of course, as all Suntop books are.
Hmm.
So it's not currently in publication. It probably um, will set you back 3 or 4 times what I paid for it if you try to buy it on the used market now, because those do have a high resale.
Yes.
But I like my copy, and that's where I read The Man of the Crowd.
And I have multiple works of Edgar Allan Poe myself, some of them 1950s and earlier.
Wow.
But this particular one that I read this one from is actually a complete works of his that I got off Project Gutenberg.
Oh, yep.
And it is complete.
And there's another website called Poe Tales
Mm-hmm.
that has
Yes.
all of his tales
Yes, I did see that when I was
free to read
Googling it
online.
too. Mm-hmm. Yep, you can
And
read
I
it right in
did
your
notice
browser.
it was on there when I was looking up something else about the story.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Which is a great resource if you want to know anything about Edgar Allan Poe. That's a
Hmm.
really nice site. I saw
Yeah.
that when I was
Well, there's
perusing.
another really good site by an Edgar Allan Poe Society or something like that
Mm-hmm.
that has
The Poe
all of his.
Society.
Yeah, it has all of his tales and poems, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean even stuff that you won't find in
The
books,
ambiguous stuff.
fragments and stuff that
Mm-hmm.
are not in books, and they have everything online. That's an incredible resource.
Yes. Huge library there.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So, synopsis.
All right, the synopsis is one night a man is people watching, as
Mhm.
one does, and we don't have a name for this narrator. We'll just assume it's Poe himself.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there and observing people and making, commentary about the types of people that he's used to seeing. And then he notices one man who seems to have every emotion under the sun flashing across his face and had just such a strange expression that
Hmm.
he decides he's going to start following this guy to figure out what is he up to?
Yeah.
Because is he a murderer? Is he in love? Is he psychotic? Is he perfectly sane and just really excitable? Like nobody, like he's really having a hard time figuring out this guy because he's
Hmm.
never seen him in a crowd. And so he's pursuing him in all different parts of London, just
Hmm.
everywhere. And he's following him around. No, was it in London or was it New
Yeah,
York?
yeah. It was London.
It was London. Okay. So he's following him around everywhere. And the guy kind of gets more nervous the less people there are around him.
Hmm.
And then he goes and finds like a theater with people being released from it. And he goes in the crowd and just paces around the crowd
Hmm.
until there's like nobody left and everybody trickles off. So he's just pursuing the next crowd he can find.
Hmm.
And so the author's just, or the narrator's just following this guy around. And he's just popping himself into crowds
Hmm.
because he seemed at his most happy when he was in crowds.
Yeah.
That's literally the whole story. Just following him around and just being like, well, he's a man of the crowd.
Hmm.
He's just afraid of being alone
Hmm.
and just finds himself the happiest when he's amongst a group of people. It was, I found it very boring.
Okay.
Yeah. It was interesting. It was an interesting perspective.
I thought I didn't think it was great,
Mm-hmm.
but I did pick up on something.
Yeah.
as I was reading it, I thought the way that the narrator is viewing this guy and interacting with this guy, and especially at the end when they're face to face
Mm-hmm.
and the man he's following does not seem to even see him.
Yeah.
It had to be the narrator.
Oh,
He was talking about
interesting.
himself.
Interesting.
And that's why I Googled the story. I wanted to see if I was right about that, and I was right. In the 1800s, mid 1800s especially, there was a deep fascination with doppelgangers
Oh, okay.
and the idea of two sides of human nature possibly being like separate people, like
Yeah.
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Dostoevsky, I believe it was, wrote The Double,
Mm-hmm.
which was a similar sort of thing. There's I forget the name of it. There's this other novel that inspired Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde
Mm-hmm.
that was also about doppelgangers, and there
Yeah.
there was just a lot of interest in the idea of a doppelganger, the idea of that good and evil
Yeah.
balance within our personalities,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's two sides of us. Even Frankenstein, the
Yeah.
monster is like one side of Dr. Frankenstein. The
Mm-hmm.
two of them are like doppelgangers.
Yeah.
And so it was a huge um what you call almost call a trope in
Mm-hmm.
19th century fiction.
Interesting.
And I thought this has to be that kind of a story. So I,
See, in
I
my
looked it
mind, I'm
up.
like, this guy's kind of creepy that he's stalking this really strange, clearly delusional man.
Yeah,
Like, then I'm like, and it's not even that interesting.
it does become interesting when you realize he's looking at himself.
Yeah,
He's
and
seeing himself. He's
see, and
walking
I
through the
didn't pick up on
crowds,
that at
and
all.
his other side is following himself and
Hmm.
seeing himself as a separate person, two
Interesting.
sides of the same personality walking around through the crowds.
Interesting. Yeah, so that does make it a little more interesting to me.
Hmm.
But I still didn't feel like it would. The descriptions of people are kind of fun and interesting, but I didn't really find it to be a very strongly written work or very
No,
remarkable in a lot of regards,
yeah,
personally.
yeah, definitely. For this type of story, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is
Also,
better.
I'm an introvert, so couldn't relate. The people watching I could relate to, but trying
Yeah,
to pursue crowds and find the next big group of people to get yourself
yeah,
lost
no,
in, absolutely not. I'd rather die.
I agree
Or
with
if
you
I
there.
do, I'm gonna pass out for 3 days. Like I used to go to concerts when I was little, like in my 20s, and like I'd pay for it for the next 3 days. I just couldn't get out of bed
Hmm.
because of how exhausting that is. So
Hmm.
I didn't find it very relatable or very strong, which it isn't surprising me lately either. I feel like some of the last, a few of the Edgar Allan Poes we've read have been kind of meh at
Yeah.
best. So this just felt like another kind of meh story to
I
me.
thought it was better than that,
Hmm.
but only because I picked up on what was going on behind the
Yeah,
scenes.
I did not pick up
That's
on that at all.
that's another thing about, well, a lot of what's being sold today is very surface, and you don't
Hmm.
have that um, symbolism underneath. You don't have
Yeah.
that interpretation going on underneath that you need to try and figure out.
Hmm.
Older literature, especially the classics written by the more famous authors,
Hmm.
there will be a lot of things in their writing that they put there on purpose,
Hmm.
which are not blatant and are not really clear. And you have to think about it deeper in order to
Yeah.
figure those things out.
Well, and I thought about it pretty deeply. Like to me it was just like, oh, this is a man who has a fear of being alone.
Yeah.
And what does that mean? Is that a metaphor for being a sheep and always following the crowd, trying to be trendy?
Hmm.
Even to the surface level of just wanting to be a person in a crowd.
Hmm.
So that's how I kind of interpreted it, but I just didn't feel like it was more than that to me. So interesting.
But you also have to remember
Hmm.
the guy he's following, he describes as a criminal.
Yeah.
He's lost in the crowd for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
He did something bad,
Mm.
and he's hiding in
So
the
he's like having
crowd.
an out of body
He doesn't like
experience.
not being in the crowd because he might be identified.
Mm-hmm.
as the perpetrator.
Yeah, he does kind of portray him as a criminal. I guess I
Hmm.
didn't pick up on those nuances. I
No, that wasn't
I
very
picked up
strong.
on it as a like this guy's just nuts. He's just a crazy
Yeah.
man who likes to be in crowds and he's happiest when he's lost in faces.
Hmm.
Like the ultimate extrovert without human interaction.
Yeah, he
Like
wasn't really an
the
extrovert. He was trying to
okay.
hide in plain sight by being in
Mm,
a crowd.
yeah, and not sleeping
Yeah,
for 2 days.
exactly.
Which is insane to me.
Hmm.
So that's what I thought was insane. Actually, in my mind, I'm like, this guy's probably autistic.
Mm,
Because there's some people with autism who have issues with falling asleep.
okay.
And so the like meandering and just kind of like fidgeting around is kind of a thing. So
Hmm.
there was a lot of personal, I guess, or like modern perceptions that I had of this. And I didn't
Okay.
even like go to that,
Yeah.
to thinking about the doppelganger idea.
So, no, it's not a top tale. It's not as good as
Hmm.
like Fall of the House of Usher, but it's definitely an interesting story,
Hmm.
and I would recommend
Very
people
descriptive,
checking it
though.
out if you like the Poe kind of thing.
Hmm. I liked also how he described a lot of the people right at the beginning. He was talking about like the high society, like haughty boys
Hmm.
and different like socioeconomic statuses and how you could tell who's who and what's what and the
Hmm.
clerks and that kind of thing.
And
That I enjoyed.
what was interesting, another thing I came across in looking out about this story is that um, I think it was Whitman had written a
Hmm.
story where he was talking about different people he was seeing like that
Hmm.
and putting them in a positive light. And so Poe wrote his story after that,
In
probably having
contrast.
had read Whitman's story. He was talking mostly about the lowlifes.
Hmm.
Even though he wasn't really putting them all in a bad light,
Hmm.
he wasn't talking
He was being brutal.
about good society. He was talking about real society, the
Hmm.
poor people
Yeah.
and
The
the real
drunkards.
people you're going to find in an ordinary
Hmm.
neighborhood in London.
Yeah. That I did appreciate because you
Yeah.
kind of got that vibe and it was really good at setting a mood.
Yeah, and I just did like the fact that it wasn't just,
Hmm.
you know, talking about the rich socialites walking out of the opera or
Yeah,
something,
everybody looking
that it
very
was
fancy
looking
and stuff. It was a
that it was
commoner's.
talking about the real
Hmm.
people.
Yeah, that I did appreciate about it.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's really all I have to say about this one.
Yeah, so have you read The Man of the Crowd? What do you think? Leave your comments in the comment section for everybody to see. Um, I think I already spoiled it, so don't worry about spoilers.
Yeah, it is what it
And
is. Yeah.
um, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and come back. We have a lot more Poe to come and a lot of other videos as well. So
Mhm.
come on back and watch us again.
Yeah. So we will see you next time. Thanks for joining us. Bye.